Commercial real estate. No other industry carries so much influence on our lives. Where we work, how we shop, the way we live, how we experience entertainment. Commercial real estate is at the core of our daily lives.
I read Bisnow every morning and throughout the day. It keeps me aware of events that are going on.
I love the Bisnow events. It's a great combination of people and information and venue. You always have it in a great place.
Folks who are wanting to be educated, learn, connect with others, and ultimately help each other grow our businesses.
It gives us a lot of good attention. You're able to build relationships and network with people that you may not even see, touch, or feel. But in the virtual world, it helps you connect.
From events, to news, to branded content, to career development, executive retreats, and new data solutions. Bisnow's singular voice, attitude, and perspective annually reaches 30 million readers and more than 100,000 industry insiders each year. But the real power of Bisnow are our people. They are what make Bisnow go. And our people drive CRE to greater heights. Bisnow is the town square for real estate. The conversation starts here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole from the Bisnow team, and thank you so much for tuning into today's webinar. This webinar would not be possible without our partner, so I do want to take a moment right at the top to thank our presenting sponsor, New Columbia Solar, and a special thank you to Mike Healy, Nicole Rentz, and Becca Brown for making all of this possible. We'd also like to thank Poland, Julia Wolfington, who will be moderating our second panel. So please stick around, it's going to be great. And then now for a few brief housekeeping items before we get started. First, to all of our attendees, everyone is on mute and without video, but please feel free to say hello in the chat and where you're tuning in from. Second, if you experience any technical difficulties, please exit out of Zoom and then re-enter. Third, please look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a Q&A button. There will be some time for questions for our speakers towards the end of each panel. So please submit your questions there and we will try to get to as many as we can. Last, if you need to step away or take a call, we get it, life happens. The recording of the webinar will be live on our website within 24 hours at bisnow.com/webinars. And then now I'd like to hand it over to our first panel. They will do a quick self-intro before we jump into the discussion on demystifying the district solar market, a 101 for those interested in installing solar facilities on their properties in DC. So I'm going to kick it off to Mike Healy to say a couple things, and then he will introduce the panel. And see you, Mike.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I guess you couldn't, thank you very much, Nicole. Yeah. Take two. My name is Mike Healy. My name is Mike Healy. I'm the co-founder and CEO of New Columbia Solar. We are a district-based solar developer and owner and operator of solar projects. We're about 100 people located in the District of Columbia. And we got about $125 million of solar assets under management here in DC and the surrounding Maryland area. And New Columbia's role is to, our job is to turn building owners into champions. And we do that by trying to make it as easy as possible for building owners to adopt solar. And we look at it as rooftop real estate. So the way that we typically work is for building owners to, we lease rooftops just like building owners lease out other parts of their building. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but I'm really excited that Bisnow is putting forward this presentation because this is a increasingly interesting and important part of the district's real estate market. Sustainability, solar. We've been around for 5 years, but many members of New Columbia have been involved in this space in DC for well over a decade, and seeing the policies and things like that come together that support this market. So the goal of this webinar is to, try to explain and provide some, information around what are different ways to adopt solar, how to do it easily. It sounds often customers say, oh, this sounds, there's just a lot of stuff going on. I got other stuff, to deal with, and we get it. And so hopefully we can explain it in such a way that it's a little less, scary to digest, and we can get some more folks powering their buildings with solar. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie, our moderator today.
Thanks so much, Mike. So my name is Stephanie Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chesapeake Solar and Storage Industry. We represent solar stakeholders across the industry in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. We have about 150 member companies, and they span everything from installers, large-scale developers, EPCs. We have the DC Green Bank as a member as well. So very excited to be here and dive into the discussion. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Dave. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Dave Shupman. I'm the COO of Fortis. Fortis has been around since about 1993. We specialize in roof performance programs for roofs, mainly existing roofs. We are very solar friendly. And so that's, I think, why we're on the panel here. We do a fair amount with New Columbia in the district. And we've got about 140 million square feet under a coverage, about 4,800 buildings. So looking forward to participating this morning.
Thanks so much, Dave. And Vicki?
Hi, I'm Vicki Davis. I'm with Urban Atlantic. I'm one of the founding partners, and we have put over 1.5 megawatts of solar on our buildings. So we love the solar program and we plan for it. And I've just been at the groundbreaking of a new project in New Carrollton a few minutes ago, and it's ready for solar too. So we're really, really excited about that. And it's an honor to be here with all of you, but also to be a part of Bisnow. I think it's a great convening resource. Thank you so much for including me.
Thank you, Vicki. And Felipe?
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. So my name is Felipe Ernst. I'm the founder and managing partner of Ernst Equities. I'm an entrepreneur specializing in value-add real estate developments throughout the DC metropolitan region. I started my firm 7 years ago, and we're currently invested in Class B and C multifamily and affordable housing projects located inside the Beltway. We've worked with New Columbia Solar on some projects. We're big fans. We're looking to grow together, and I can't wait to share all the wonderful things, not just for your bottom line, but also for the environment and the win-win scenario that can come out of, putting solar in your buildings.
Thanks so much, Felipe. So with that, I think we can get started. So my first question for the panel is, as business leaders in the district, what do you think our Bisnow audience of commercial real estate professionals should know about local solar opportunities? And Felipe, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to jump on this. So, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm hoping a lot of our audience is thinking, this solar stuff sounds really interesting, but how does it work? What are the nuances? What can I get out of it? And what are the mission components that are, backing this whole this whole industry and solar in general. So I kind of want to talk about a project that I've done. I think if I provide a little case study, it would help relate with the audience. So we have a 55-unit property in Brookland in Northeast Washington, D.C. It's 2 buildings, so it's a little complicated in terms of figuring out how the solar components works. But this is why doing solar is really a no-brainer. So the first thing is we got a free roof remediation out of it. So they resurfaced the roof. We got a 15-year warranty out of it, so we don't have to worry about our roof for the next 15 years. Luckily, Dave and the guys at Fortis are taking care of that for us. So, you know, obviously in the life cycle of real estate, you got leaks, you got other issues which affect your OPEX, which affect your CAPEX. So these are things that, you know, not having to worry about your roof because it's under warranty for 15 years is a great benefit. In addition, we're leasing out our roof right now for that asset, and obviously it depends on the size and how many kilowatts you can pull out of your roof. We're getting a lease payment of $10,000 approximately per year, which is obviously great. You know, everyone wants more money in their pocket, but on top of that, if you look at kind of behind the scene financial metrics, if you put, for example, a 5 cap or on a $10,000 payment per year, you're looking at an additional $200,000 in value to your building. So a lot of times people are thinking, oh, my roof, you know, it's a headache. It costs me money. It's something that I have to deal with. But what the guys at New Columbia Solar with Fortis and solar providers around the country have really been able to turn your roof into an asset. And if you think about it, you know, here I am getting a 15-year roof for free. That's fully warranty. I'm getting an additional $10,000 payment per year, which, by the way, escalates over time for 15 years, which adds $10,000 to your pocket and $200,000 in value to your building. And then not just that, but the guys at New Columbia have been amazing. They take care of everything. You basically sign some paperwork. You might have to notarize a thing or two, and then before you know it, they're off to the races, and they take care of everything. So you literally don't have to do anything. They'll call you up and say, hey, you know, we're ready to go. And you say, great, you know, let me know what you need. You can connect them with the property manager. They can open some doors, open some roof hatches, and you're off and running. But one of the other components that I wanted to talk about is the environment. And I know that's something that's a really popular topic right now, but it's something that's also really important. So for this case study that I'm talking about, the project is projected to do 92.7 kilowatts over a 15-year life agreement. And I know that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but basically that system will offset 80 metric tons of CO2, which is the equivalent of 89,000 pounds of coal being burned, or the equivalent of growing 1,350 trees over the next 10 years. So that is, I mean, picture planting 1,350 trees over the next 10 years. That is huge. So, I mean, this is such a no-brainer. You know, I'm a user, I'm a client, you know, I'm not being paid to say this. This is, you know, this is what I genuinely believe. And I really think that this is something that everyone should be considering. You know, New Columbia Solar will provide a quote, they'll provide a little package for you so you can kind of figure out whether or not it's a good fit. But I mean, between the roof warranty, the NOI increase, the money, and the offsetting of the carbon footprint, it's a wonderful product, and you know, it's something that we want to expand and grow moving forward for sure. So.
Thank you, Felipe. And Vicky, do you have any thoughts about solar energy opportunities in DC?
I do. So, you know, a lot of the people on this call in the audience are practitioners, but I am sometimes surprised that more real estate developers and owners don't know that the District of Columbia is bar none the best jurisdiction in the country to invest in solar. It helps with your mandatory stormwater management regulations because it adds to your green area ratio. So you can do it together with green roofs, et cetera. The SREC value in DC is very high. So it monetizes very, very well and is very accretive to cash flow. And further, you know, this sounds kind of strange, but I've been talking to my family about the price of gas and economic impacts on the United States. And what I would say is, I think solar is a really, really big component of where we're headed as a country. And it's super important to get on board and do this. And yes, it's always nice to do it for the money. And we like that as investors and as developers. And we like that it contributes to our regulatory requirements, but actually, I think it will add to economic stability for the country. And I hope to live to a day where we don't burn any fossil fuels here, and we don't sell any gasoline here, and we're not dependent on any country for any of that, right? And that we have a solar system and a battery system and a vehicular system and a building system that can pick up all of that. And I think that DC is at the cutting edge of that. It's super, super important to us, to macro impacts. And I think it's very, very important. And I will tell you this, we have close to a meg of solar at Rhode Island Road. You all can Google Earth it. It's a metro station. It's on top of garages. It's on top of wood frame buildings. Let me repeat that. It's on top of wood frame buildings, okay, that were built 12 years ago. And so it's totally doable, and it's very valuable. And I think it's going to help change the way our grid functions and be a very integral part of how we live. And so to me, that's part of being an innovative developer and on the front end of things.
Thank you, Vicki. And Mike, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think the number one thing from, you know, I would want to tell the audience is that solar can be very, very lucrative. It can be very impactful to, it's also very impactful to the community in a number of ways. And it can be very easy for, you know, for building owners to adopt. You know, you can look at anywhere between, you know, around $1 a square foot is usually what we use for rooftop. And a lot of folks aren't using their rooftop anyways. So if you can get $1 per square foot in additional lease on your rooftop, you know, that's not bad on an annual basis. And then, you know, there are ways to, as Felipe has attested to, you know, there are ways to refinance roofs and extend those warranties, et cetera. So there's some real value. At the same time, there's some real community benefits as well. New Columbia is one of the largest providers of clean power to low-income residents through a program called the Solar for All program. And so we go and we rent rooftops from building owners all over the city, and we provide the power to those most in need in the district. So we're serving, I believe it's around 3,500, a little over 3,000 families, I believe, at this time through the Solar for All program. And that's a really impactful program for the district, for obviously families in the district, and it's a way for building owners to be able to impact not just the folks you know, that are tenants within their buildings, but others as well. And so we try to do a really good job, work with our clients to be able to not just provide clean energy to their buildings, but also be able to communicate to, you know, the public about what the benefits that the building is, that's through Solar for All or you know, through the environmental benefits and things along those lines. And what's really cool is, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and economics has been a big driver for a long time, but we're starting to get to the point where economics isn't the sole driver. There's a lot of social interest as well. There's obviously some regulatory requirements, as Vicki mentioned, with the green area ratio, stormwater, BEPS, things along those lines that solar can benefit from. So we can talk, you know, more about those things. I can also break down. There's been a number of questions I've seen in the chat around the different revenue streams. But high level, you know, solar can be very impactful to your building. It can be very impactful to your top line and bottom line, and it can be very easy to implement.
Thank you, Mike. And as a follow-up question, are building owners able to split between a solar for all and energy for their building, or do they have to pick one or the other?
Typically, it's one or the other. It can be very difficult interconnection to kind of split the baby there. But there's ways to that's a kind of a technical question. At the end of the day, the important thing is we can be providing power to low-income families, and at the same time provide an offset in either energy or cash in lieu of energy to the building owners.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. And Dave, do you have anything to add?
Just that protecting a roof is important when you're doing solar. And one of the things that we get a lot from prospective buyers is, hey, I've got a roof in place that's performing well. I've got an existing warranty. What is the solar provider going to do to protect that warranty? I can tell you New Columbia Solar goes above and beyond, really making sure that they're communicating with the owner, communicating with the manufacturer of that particular warranty, and making sure that the roof's going to be protected while that solar project is in place. They also have a very unique aspect in working with us where they're able to extend those warranties on those same roofs in place. So when we're talking about solar benefits and sustainability benefits, there's also that clean energy that the solar is providing, but there's a lot of carbon offsets, a lot of oil savings, a lot of landfill savings from reusing that roof that's in place, putting a roof performance plan on it, and guaranteeing that it's going to perform through that solar life. So that's something that New Columbia Solar was an early adopter on, and I think it's really helping them in the marketplace.
Yeah, if I could just add on that real quick, Stephanie, we love to get to roofs when they're new and when they're, when they're brand new roofs, but that's rare in the city, obviously. A lot of buildings have been around for a really long time. And so Fortis has a great product that we've been able to partner with Fortis to be able to provide a warranty on an existing rooftop. And that's really been helpful in deploying solar, and it's been really impactful to building owners as well, as Felipe was attesting to earlier.
Great. Thank you, Mike. So for my next question, I'd like to know what's happening on the asset management side of the industry that makes solar an attractive business case for CRE. And Mike, can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think this speaks a little bit to the, kind of set it and forget it concept that I was mentioning earlier. Solar is, an asset that it needs continual help. It needs continual monitoring. You're talking about power systems syncing up to the grid. There's a lot of, I would say there's myths that, you put a solar system on the roof and you never have to look at it again. And that really is not the case, especially if you want to maximize your investment or maximize the opportunity with solar. And so, with the asset management side of things, that's something that, for example, New Columbia provides where, and typically when we own and operate the system, we're obviously doing it to maximize, our investment. That's what we, that's what we specialize in, is maximizing the revenue streams and then continuing to maximize the asset management. And so, that's something that is typically handled 100% by New Columbia. We do, we handle the kind of physical side of things, going to the site at least once a year to look at it. Then we are monitoring, digitally every day, seeing what the production looks like. We have weather stations all over the district to make sure, so we can actually understand the irradiance of the sun, and we compare that to how your solar system is producing, so we can see if there's something wrong, and if it dips below a certain level, we start to get red flags, and we get somebody out there right away. So that is something that gets taken care of. Also on the financial side, as it relates to managing solar renewable energy credits, tax credits, all the revenue streams associated with solar, community renewable energy credits. That's something that an asset management service that New Columbia provides to monetize those things. And again, the way that we typically, although not always, pass through the value of these assets or of these revenue streams is in the form of a lease payment. So we don't have to, say, hey, this is how much we're selling SRECs for. This is how much we're selling power for. This is how much tax credits are going for. There's all these different things. For most building owners, they say, what we want to see is, we want to see a lease, and we want to understand what that is on a monthly basis. And so that's what we largely do. And after the solar system goes into development, there's not a lot of time and effort necessarily needed from the building owner themselves.
Thanks, Mike.
And to piggyback off that, obviously that's the asset management side for New Columbia Solar, and this is their business. But on the asset management side for the real estate owner, it's minimal, right? It's New Columbia takes care of everything. There's no hassle. There's no they're checking to make sure that the systems are up and running. So once it's up and running, it kind of is a sit and let play on our end because they handle everything. So I think it's important as the user on the other side, right, leasing out your roof, to share that we really don't do anything, right? You just mailbox money, collect the rent, and then do a good mission component by giving back to the environment. So on the asset management side, luckily the guys at New Columbia Solar kind of tackle everything, and we kind of just sit pretty and collect checks. So not a bad place to be on the other side.
I'd actually say we've done it both ways, and I truly appreciate a fully managed process that takes a lot of the headache of that off the developer. And I think it's a very good packaged way to do solar. And maybe in the future it will include battery storage as well. So I think that could be also an important innovation as we go.
And
the last thing, if I can just piggyback on that real quick, is that there is a natural alignment, which is nice, between New Columbia in this case and the building owner, and that we're aligned to make sure that we both want the asset to be performing optimally to generate maximum return. So we certainly don't want some sort of stranded asset on your roof or something that's not working properly. We want the roof to be properly, so that the solar system can be generating 365 days a year. So there's go here where all the stakeholders are aligned to try to maximize output of the solar system.
thanks, Mike. And Dave, do you have any thoughts about increasing the roof lifespan for these projects?
Sure. Just that when we're working on these existing roofs, I mean, we have very high standard. We want these roofs, as Mike said, to last, to the full extent of the solar program. And so we really go over those with a fine tooth comb to make sure that they're in good condition. But there's ongoing work that's done throughout the term. So it's not, you'll see us at the beginning, you don't see us anymore. We're proactive on that roof. We've got a great partnership with New Columbia, and just like Mike said, that they don't want these solar projects up there that are just kind of rotting. They're out there proactively, so we're working with each other on a regular basis to maintain the assets of both the roof and the solar. If there's a leak, that's another question we get a lot. What happens? Because of the program and the partnership we have with New Columbia, we make it very easy for the owner. If it's a leak that's underneath a panel, we'll coordinate with them. They'll send a crew out. They'll do whatever disconnects or shutoffs that they need to do in a very safe manner. Remove the panels. We'll go ahead and take care of the leak. If additional reconditioning work is necessary, we'll do that. They'll put the panel back, and it keeps going. There's no interruption to the owner whatsoever. Their lease check stays in place. They're not hassling with things. They're not worrying about coordinating with an outside entity or warranty company or an outside contractor to worry about how to disconnect the solar. It's a very integrated solution and very, very seamless.
Great. Thanks, Dave. So my next question for the group is about SRECs. So one of the most mystifying financial benefits are these solar renewable energy credits called SRECs. So my question is, who gets them and how do they work in projects that are owned by third parties?
Big looks eager to take that one. I'm happy to speak to it. So solar renewable energy credits are a commodity that is produced for 1 megawatt hour of generation of solar. So what that basically means is you only get kilowatt hours, which are the electricity component of the solar system that you can use to offset electricity that you would otherwise use in your building. Or you could sell that, we sell that electricity sometimes to homeowners in the district or other folks that are off-site from the building. So we can do that as well if you don't use a lot of power on site. But solar renewable energy credits are created alongside the electricity. And the intent of the solar renewable energy credit is an environmental credit And the way that it works is, there's a market for those credits. There's compliance buyers that are typically your Constellations, BP Powers, the folks that are out there selling electricity. They have a requirement in the district to retire a certain amount of these solar renewable energy credits. And so we have, one of the largest portfolio of solar renewable energy credits. So we benefit from the ability to go in with a lot of these credits and get pretty good pricing, and work with, we typically only work with investment grade off takers. So folks that basically have a balance sheet that aren't going to go away. A lot of folks are willing to, dabble in buying SRECs, but whether they're investment grade or not is kind of another question. So it's a revenue component that is created, by the solar system for generation. And then typically the owner of the solar system owns those renewable energy credits. And again, the value of those credits can be passed through to building owners in various ways. Some folks enjoy owning those credits themselves, and some folks prefer to get the value passed through in the form of a lease or some sort of revenue share or something like that. I think it's, the last thing I would just add is, it's obviously safe to say that, there's cost to, working with like a New Columbia in the owner operator side of things, right? But there's also ease of use. So it depends on, a particular building owner's, desire. There's, as Vicki was kind of pointing to earlier, there's a lot of components that go into this, and there are folks that like to dabble in that and get involved. I kind of usually refer to it like my I have my E-Trade account, which I dabble in, but then I have someone who actually manages the vast majority of my my money, and he always seems to do a little bit better than I do.
And Vicki, do you have thoughts to add on this, on SRECs?
You know what? I love to do home improvement, and I like to do the work myself, and I do that for fun. And some people might feel that way about SRECs, but I actually prefer a package deal. We make our money developing real estate, and so it's and owning real estate. And so for us, it's much better to have that process holistically managed. It's a lot like investments and the stock exchange. The numbers vary over time. And so from my perspective, I wouldn't put it in the do-it-yourself category. I would put it in the managed account category, because ultimately solar to me is a part of my buildings, but it's not, it's not managing the inside. I much prefer a holistic approach, like New Columbia's approach on this. I think it makes a heck of a difference. And I think it works out very, very well for the building owner. All of my solar is solar for all. We're deeply committed to affordable housing and supporting utilities for low-income families. And I think that the district is very, very creative about their programs around solar, because they have a different utility setup than a lot of other states do. And I actually think it can be a nationally replicable model. And because of how they've done it, their SRECs tend to trade for significant premiums over other people's SRECs. And that's quite interesting to people who are looking to have solar on their buildings.
Thank you, Vicki. So moving on to the next question, piggybacking off that, you and Felipe both have CREF projects on your properties, and that's part of the DC Solar for All program. Mike, can you tell us how that program works? And Vicki and Felipe, can you share your motivation for choosing that deal structure?
Sure. Community renewable energy is CREF, and the way that the Solar for All program works is you put a solar system on a building, could be any building, within the district, and the power is provided to low-income families in the form of credits that show up on their bill, and they reduce the value of the bill. It's a program that's administered by the District Department of DOEE, the District Department of Energy and Environment, and it's been a, you know, as Vicki referenced, it really has been a nationally leading company. We've had the White House come down and learn about that program. It's a really exciting program. It's been around for about 4 or 5 years now, and the building owners typically benefit through again some sort of lease, and the power goes is used outside of the building by the low to moderate income residents. Love to hear Felipe and Vicki's motivation.
Yeah. Absolutely. So solar for all, another no-brainer. So back to my case study, I like to tie it all back in together. So for our 55-unit building, the system at the Ashenau allows for 25 low to moderate income families to cut their utility bills in half over the next 15 years. So, I mean, you know, the mission component, giving back, it's just really a no-brainer. So solar for all, it's been a great, you know, it's great for DC, and we're hoping to see that in more of our projects. But to cut the utility bill for, you know, those that are in most need, it's really a no-brainer.
I would say for us, our company has a strong ESG program and motivation. And to us, helping people in affordable housing in whatever way, through services, for utility rebates, anything like that is important. Solar for all is kind of interesting. Like for me, I love my own people the best, you know, and I love the people who live in our affordable housing the best. What Solar for All does is it distributes it across the city. And so almost any affordable household is able to apply for it. I think one of the things I'd love to see changed about the program is that I think it should be used on master metered buildings as well. And because oftentimes those reach people at the deepest affordability level. So it's a really important thing, and just figuring that out. But for me, it's an ESG commitment. It is a feasibility commitment. And we really, really love this program. I think it's only possible because of how DC has structured their sustainable energy utility, the DC SEU, to make this happen. And so I think it's a really like precedent-setting thing, and frankly should be award-winning and replicable to the extent that other jurisdictions can get behind a program like that.
Thanks so much, Vicki. And I think Nicole is ready to ask a few questions.
I'd love to get to some of your Q&A questions. Quick reminder, for any questions you have, please ask them in the Q&A section so I don't miss them. But just so we can get a couple of these going. First, can you compare the cost benefit to the property owner and developer to install and own the solar facility themselves versus leasing the roof to a solar company?
I guess that's for me. It really is hard to give a kind of generic response to that because it really depends on the building itself. It's safe to say, you know, you are giving up something to, to have somebody else manage it. And then what that is depends on kind of the unique characteristics of the building, what the, what the solar system, the design of the solar system, and things along those lines. So it's really difficult. I will say, there's a lot of solar companies, but DC solar is very, very unique. New Columbia was specifically designed to help DC achieve its clean energy goals. So, I think the important thing is to make sure that you're working with, whether it's New Columbia or somebody else, that really does understand the DC market, because it's extremely unique relative to other markets across the country.
Thank you. We have time for just one more here. How are you working solar panels on the new buildings where the rooftop is used for amenity space?
Okay, so it depends on your building type, right? And most buildings that have rooftop amenities don't use all of the rooftop for the amenity space. In my experience, we have three main uses for rooftops. You have amenity space, you have HVAC equipment and venting, and you have green roof. And the newest thing of solar is a combination with green roof. And so you harvest the benefits of both, which I think is very important. I'm looking forward to doing that on a building that I have under construction right now. If your amenity space is open to the sky, it's not a place for solar. But if it's a covered amenity space and it has a roof on it, then that's as good as any other roof. For the HVAC, what we do on our buildings is we try to gang them close to the corridors in the middle of multifamily buildings so that we then have the largest expanses possible for both green roof and solar installations. That's how we do ours.
I would just add, in addition to, we're primarily talking to the roof, we've also done a number of parking canopies as well, so other space can be used. We did actually the largest parking canopy in the district. It's also the largest Solar for All project, Children's Hospital at Walter Reed. And there's another great looking one over at the KIPP school over by Union Market. So, look at the parking lot can also be successfully for solar as well. And one other, the brewery over in Brookland, we did we put the canopy out front of the brewery, and so it's actually providing shade and it's powering the building with solar. And so we've actually done some of those on rooftops as well to provide shade. So there are ways to certainly incorporate it in addition to what Vicki said around green roofs and things along those lines.
Perfect. Thank you so much to our first panel. You guys can all go off video and mute yourself, but you're welcome to stick around for our second panel. So now I'm going to introduce our second panel. You can all come off mute and turn on your video. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let's jump in. We're going to be talking about the non-market value of sustainability in DC, an exploration of economic influences and incentives for going solar. Now I'll pass it to Julie, our moderator, to help introduce the panel.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Great. All right. Just wanted to make sure. So my name is Julie Wolfington, and I am the Energy and Sustainability Leader for Boland. We are an HVAC company, and because HVAC is generally 30 to 50% of a building's utility bill, that also means we're an energy company. So I'd now like to introduce our illustrious panel, and Lindsay, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Falaska. I'm the director of the Building Innovation Hub. The hub was launched with support from the District Department of Energy and Environment, specifically to support local building industry professionals not only understand green building regulations, but really help propel the industry forward to meet the district's ambitious green building and climate goals.
Great. Cass?
Hi there. Thanks again for the invite to speak. Excited to be here. So I'm Cass McFadden, VP of Sustainability at Bisnow. The Bisnow Group is a privately held national real estate company with 4 divisions: management, construction, development, and homes. The company has developed, acquired, and built more than 45,000 homes and apartments, and we manage a little over 88,000 apartments and about 3 million square feet of retail space across many jurisdictions. We have 53 buildings in DC, and we operate all along the East Coast and California and Chicago. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Cass. Nicole.
Hi, my name is Nicole Rentz. I'm the Director of Market Development and Policy for New Columbia Solar. And Mike did a pretty good intro for the company earlier, but for anybody that missed that, I'll just say that, we're a solar development and financing company working here in DC in the metro region and elsewhere. And we're, ultimately looking to be a one-stop shop for sustainability in the district.
Great, thanks. And Christian.
Thanks, Julie. I'm Christian Clifford, and I lead sustainability for Carr Properties. We're headquartered in the district, and we develop, own, and operate primarily office buildings. We have one multifamily project with Bisnow in the DC metro area, Boston, Austin, Texas markets. We own 8 buildings in the district, so we're definitely vested, and we're definitely committed to doing our part to help the district meet its clean energy goals. And in terms of solar, we definitely have been progressive, as Vicky's group has. We've installed 3 rooftop solar systems in the district, and we're evaluating many more across the portfolio, and for sure in the district.
That's great to hear. Okay, so today's discussion, as previously stated, was or is on the non-market value of sustainability in DC. So first, to clarify, I thought we would start with what do we mean by non-market and what are non-market factors? So these are pressures and influences that drive business strategy outside of economic factors. So primarily BEPS and ESG goals. So this discussion will explain how commercial real estate stakeholders can leverage solar energy as a tool to comply with BEPS and meet ESG goals. So kicking off the first question, speaking of BEPS, we have the expert with us today. What is it, and what does our audience need to know about the district's law? Lindsay.
Absolutely. So just to set a little framework for this, DC has a vision to be carbon neutral and climate resilient by 2050. And there are a number of ways in which the city is looking to meet those goals. And one of them is specifically looking at the building stock in DC. And so since buildings account for over 70% of the district's greenhouse gas emissions, the main contributor to climate change, reducing the amount of energy use in buildings is incredibly paramount to achieve those climate commitments. And so the building energy performance standards, or BEPS as for shorthand, are the regulatory tool that the district is using to help meet those green building and climate goals. And so just a quick overview of what they actually are for folks who are not familiar. So a BEPS sets a minimum threshold for energy performance, for existing buildings. So those thresholds or standards are based on and measured against a building's demonstrated energy performance as shown through their benchmarking data. So I know that was kind of a lot. So in the district, large building owners, so buildings over 50,000 square feet, have been benchmarking their energy and water performance for nearly a decade. And now that benchmarking data is really being put to use. So under BEPS, the district aggregates individual building performance per property type to establish a standard for that building type to meet. And so buildings that don't meet that standard for their property type will be required to improve performance over the course of what's called a compliance cycle, and then demonstrate it at the end. So that's sort of a really high level overview of what the BEPS program is in DC. And so just a few things that are important to note about those regulations. We are about a year and a half into the first compliance cycle, which started on January 1st, 2021, and effectively ends on January 1st, 2026, at which point a new compliance cycle will begin. So it's quite reasonable to think that the current standards will be increased in future BEPS compliance cycles. So we want to make sure that everyone is thinking long-term about what this means. Another note, a code compliant building, so new construction code compliant building, doesn't guarantee that you'll meet performance thresholds. So we are encouraging everyone to think and design beyond code minimums, especially when we're talking about a prescriptive code versus performance requirements. And then also big picture, the BEPS program will eventually incorporate all privately owned buildings greater than 10,000 square feet. So if you own or operate buildings over 10,000 square feet, it's important to sort of understand when this program will hit you and what it actually means. And then just two high level notes. BEPS isn't only in DC. So locally, new performance laws have been passed in Montgomery County, in the state of Maryland, and they've been introduced in Prince George's County as well. And then nationally, jurisdictions across the country have enacted similar laws: New York City, Boston, St. Louis, and then there's at least 36 other jurisdictions that are committed to passing similar laws as well. So just wanted to explain what the BEPS program is, and then also put it into the larger context of where jurisdictions and governments across the country are moving with it as well.
That's so exciting to hear. I did not realize all of that was in the works. So great to hear across the country. How does solar relate to BEPS? Nicole, you want to take that one for us?
Yeah, sure. Solar in your building can really help you with BEPS compliance in two primary ways. First, it's on-site energy production, so it reduces your building's energy use intensity, or EUI, and therefore that increases your Energy Star, bringing you closer to BEPS compliance, or BEPS requirements, depending on which part you're required to meet. This is because on-site renewable energy generation is given a 1-to-1 source conversion factor under the Energy Star program, and so it's assumed to have no transmission and distribution losses, as grid energy is assumed to get. Second, as was discussed some in the previous panel, solar can provide you upfront capital or ongoing lease payments at your preference, really, to help finance other BEPS measures that you may need to undertake to comply with BEPS requirements. So upgrading your HVAC, window, lighting systems, etc. One of the sort of ideal win-win scenarios here is roof replacements, as Felipe and Dave talked about earlier, because, first, a roof replacement itself can significantly increase the overall efficiency of your building, helping you meet BEPS requirements. And when the roof replacement is paired with solar, you get the benefits of solar helping you get closer to BEPS requirements, as well as you can get a portion of the cost of the roof replacement potentially covered by the solar investment tax credit, which is used to finance the solar systems. And then another key point is that BEPS doesn't disincentivize solar in any way. It doesn't require you to retain or retire SRECs or penalize it in any other way. So that's kind of how BEPS and solar work together.
Great. Okay. So how do you position a commercial real estate business strategy to capitalize on these non-market pressures and influences? Cass, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say that Lindsay and Nicole did such a great job in walking through BEPS and how solar really fits into this overall strategic piece. When we think about business strategies for real estate, I mean, the first step is to embrace the overall trend and integrate, which has been a major challenge, I would say, for owners, whether in DC or in other jurisdictions. If we just pause and think about BEPS for a second, it can really result in significant fines, right? I won't belabor that point, but the takeaway is that fines can be upwards of 7.5 million, and who knows, over time, as the new cycles begin, they can be even more significant. And so the owners who are breathing really easy right now are the ones who have made the upfront investments, have integrated sustainability into their maybe overall ESG strategy or their just approach to business and how they're going to handle operations. But for the ones who maybe don't have the right score or aren't performing at a certain efficiency with their buildings, they're not in as good of shape as the other owners. And so it's really important to integrate into all components of the strategy, especially the building performance, and most importantly, to find holes and opportunities earlier on. There are a lot of conversations that we have from a management perspective with owners about audits, base audits, and some of them are tinkering on maybe a 66 score now in Energy Star, and they're like, well, why would I need to do an audit? Well, the score, the performance, all those things are going to change over time. And so you have to think about, from a business perspective, what you're going to do to stay ahead, to maximize efficiency. What new innovations or technologies can you adopt at the site level? What can you really do at the residential level? It's a very multifaceted approach, but if I had to put it into just a nugget, it's embrace the overall trend and integrate early on.
Good. Kristen, do you have anything to add?
I do. Well said, Cass. Certainly from a business strategy perspective, owning green and healthy buildings, contributing to the transition to a low carbon economy and having a broad ESG program is definitely the right thing to do. And it's also a smart thing from a profitability perspective. And it's certainly our strategy. If you pursue this strategy, you're more likely to attract capital. You're more likely to win tenants. You're more likely actually to attract employees to your own firm. And it's clear that it also increased the market value of the buildings and the companies themselves. There's a clear trend of debt and equity investors deploying capital to more sustainable buildings and sustainability committed owners. It's clear from the leasing and sales market studies that green and healthy buildings are achieving higher rents, leasing space faster, and selling for higher sales prices. And it's amazing. I've been at this for 25 years of asset management and leasing, and just a couple in sustainability. But it's amazing to see how much more focus in just the past couple of years there has been on sustainability, and all these different stakeholders, which seem to be broadening every day, asking for so much performance data, proof of healthy and green, efforts and certifications, even policies and procedures. And it's just, end of the day, it's clear that there's going to be increased stakeholder focus on ESG, and also that sustainable buildings and owners should outperform going forward.
Good. That's good to hear. We like the sound of that trend too.
Yes.
More stakeholders. I've seen that as well over the years. It's been fascinating to watch how many more folks are interested now and stick their nose in it. So
yes,
that's good. So you both kind of touched on this, but anything to add as property owners and managers in the district? How is your organization approaching BEPS requirements?
Yeah,
So
I can start off. Bisnow is really pushing to advise owners upfront on the process, what the schedule might look like. We are working with the different buildings to maybe schedule the audits, do the walkthroughs, kind of understand where the opportunities are. So, we're advising, we're facilitating those vendor partnerships and really helping to identify, hopefully, affordable opportunities to improve the building. That's been most of our position. Still understanding that, owners at the end of the day are going to be responsible for submitting those compliance pathways, but we are doing our due diligence upfront, mainly as property managers, to make sure that they have the information they need and can hopefully stick to schedule and meet the compliance requirements.
That's right. So in terms of our commitment with 8 buildings to being compliant with BEPS, absolutely is the right thing to do, and we certainly don't want to pay those fines. All of our buildings pass the first compliance standards, but that's just the start. We're definitely anticipating much higher scores in the future compliance cycles. And, so there's a couple steps we've taken, and one is just fortunate, which is for the last 10 years, we've been really focusing on developing and owning buildings that are green and healthy and selling buildings that aren't. So we're better positioned from that perspective. We have a very new, younger portfolio, which helps. Then we go back to solar. So solar, and it's great to hear Vicki and others are involved in solar. We've installed 3 systems, and those systems, as Nicole, said, reduced our consumption from the grid, reduced our EOI, increased our Energy Star scores. And because the high SRECs, the higher electricity costs in DC, combined with the federal tax benefits, actually, the economics work, which is why Mike and his team have been so busy, with solar in the district. So we're continuing to evaluate more. We're working with Mike's team actually now, looking at some PPAs in the district. So we've got a good portfolio. Solar is great. There's the blocking and tackling, and I'm sure, Cass, you're working with your clients. It's the optimizing operations, it's completing energy conservation measures, it's leveraging energy intelligence software. And then the big one for us in office buildings is, can we try to push and help our customers, our tenant customers, use less energy in their spaces? And that's the big hard part for us, because we're judged by BEPS for total building consumption, and roughly half of the building is controlled by our tenant customers. So education is a big part of that. So the last item I would say is, we really don't want to not be in compliance, both because we want to be in compliance and support the district, and we definitely don't want to pay, the fines in the future. So we're actually taking it a step farther now, which is back to what you were saying, Cassim, on audits. We're evaluating doing major mechanical equipment replacements in advance of the typical end of useful life, and perhaps doing them in advance of the end of 25 and looking at, what we think our scores will be and what the benefit of doing it earlier versus the earlier cost expenditure. And I think owners are going to have to look at that if their scores feel like they may not be in compliance.
Right. And I wanted to add one more thing on just that last piece that you mentioned, Christian. At Bisnow, we have a deep integration between our maintenance team and our sustainability side. And the reason for that is because maintenance data is so critical to sustainability efforts. You can't do it without maintenance services and data and really understanding your utilities performance. And so just wanted to add that another part of our approach here is to really give that sustainability training, the why things are a priority to the maintenance team, so that when they're going on site, when they're doing their quarterly meetings, whatever it might be, they understand why their activities directly facilitate these compliance measures, right? And putting the building in better shape.
Yeah.
Great to hear. All right, next question. So let's shift the discussion a little bit. When people think of solar and ESG goals, most of us think of solar as contributing to the E, right, in ESG, the environmental aspect of it, of renewable energy. So how does solar contribute to the other verticals as well? Cass, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I would start by saying that it's important to keep in mind that the environmental, social governance framework, this is really a criteria used by investors to judge risk, to understand risk of a business and whether or not there's good management, there's ethics and things like that. So solar is definitely tied to the E. I feel like that's intuitive for folks, but when it comes to maybe the social aspect, as we make this major transition across all jurisdictions, there are affordability, accessibility issues on the back end with energy, always. And so we think of the benefits that this transition can really provide for all people, and really addressing that diversity in the buildings. There are, even if you're not putting panels directly on buildings, there are other programs, whether tied to community solar, tons of solar developers out there who are creating these farms. And then there are opportunities like one through Arcadia, if anyone's familiar with them, to really partner and provide solar access to residents who might not have access otherwise if they were, because they're living in multifamily units. And so there's an opportunity there, there's a tether. Overall, you're bringing your costs down. You're bringing them down even further with solar installations because you're now getting all of these benefits that really tie to the overall compliance environment. And so owners through solar, through this mechanism, will be able to de-risk, bring costs down. That it translates into residential benefits, right? It's not just for the building's sake, it's for the residents who live there. So overall, it starts to spill into the social aspect, and then through just good governance, you're providing more transparency of making progress in a more sustainable direction. And so there are a lot of benefits in all of the verticals, not just the E.
Great. Anyone else have anything to add on that one? Good. All right, so last question, and this one is for Cass and Christian again. Since this is a solar and sustainability webinar, where does solar fit into your ESG portfolios?
Christian, you want to go first this time?
Okay. Thanks, Cass. I'll keep it short. We've already shared, CAR's commitment to transitioning to a low, carbon economy, and a broader ESG platform. And solar is a good strategy on both those fronts. The favorable economics so far in the district, at least on non-green roofs, and at Signal House in Union Market, we delivered, I believe, to be the first ground-up office development where we held the penthouse down to be able to get the solar over green roof media. But that took actually redesigning the building before we built it. There's definitely some height act problems. So aside from the EUI benefits of solar and complying with BEPS, solar is also a very tangible example of sustainability. It's visible, to our tenants, it's visible to our employees, and it's visible to neighboring buildings. And I think it shows, again, something tangible in terms of what the district is supporting and helping, grow as an industry.
Yeah, and I would say for Bizzuto, it really fits directly into our advisory. We have ownership groups and properties that do have solar installed. Rhode Island Rose is one of them. I know Vicki had mentioned that in the last conversation, but really it's part of our advisory. We're building this out to be even more robust, where we can do an assessment, especially for ownership groups who might not have done this yet, to really understand, what is your solar opportunity that's just sitting there because of your rooftop space or whatever it might be. So if they haven't evaluated it as part of their overall sustainability strategy, we want to get them that information so they can have that up front. That is step one. After that, it's going to be the robust vendor partnerships to really get this done. We have interesting setups with retail and sometimes condo associations. And so we really have to pay attention to other impacts to leasing agreements, right? And the overall view of asset management and revenue and where it's going. But that advisory it's central to our sustainability strategy. And so we're looking forward to refining it over time.
Great, good to hear. Anyone else have anything to add? I think that if not, I think that takes us to the end of our questions. Or Nicole, did you have something? Sorry, I thought I just saw you go off mute.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say that, sort of thinking about all these things together, we're really looking at becoming sort of a turnkey solution for buildings as they're looking at complying with BEPS and trying to figure out these ESG goals. And there are a lot of different solutions that you can get to as far as, rec ownership and rec arbitrage. And long term, we're just trying to, I think we're looking at the incentives that DOE is coming up with around electrification and BEPS, and maybe Lindsay can speak to that a little bit more, but I know the deep decarbonization pathway incentivizes electrification, and DOE is likely to be developing some incentives around that. And, we think that there's an opportunity to really try to make this as easy as possible for building owners that are looking to get both of these types of benefits.
And sort of building off that and sort of very similar, a lot of the things that we've been seeing with folks looking to implement their ESG goals is not looking at them as sort of separate silos, but figuring out how to address all three together. So like specifically, folks are looking at how can we address our social goals while addressing our environmental goals? What types of companies are you hiring? What types of practices do they have? How are you engaging with them? And so now you're tying building procurement processes and business processes into your environmental goals, and it allows everyone to sort of achieve multiple goals at the same time. And so we're seeing a lot of the confluence of these things come together, which I think is really powerful.
Interesting.
And then related to what Nicole was saying about incentives, you can already see DC sort of pushing in that direction towards carbon neutrality. Of course, BEPS is really focused on energy efficiency. But in terms of where the district is pushing, we start to look at regulations that are coming in the future, look to future goals, and you could even look to how DC is structuring its incentives that it rolls out through the DCSU and through the DC Green Bank, and how they're pushing towards electrification and less on gas incentives. And so you can really start to see where the district is pushing. And so I think to Christian's earlier point, looking at the long-term path of where we're headed is really going to be really important for building owners.
Great. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And I'm going to turn it over to our host for some Q&A.
Thank you everyone so much. That was incredible. Just want to get to a couple questions here. First, it has been mentioned that the credits received are some of the most valuable solar credits in the country. What factors have caused that, and what risks are there to that price declining?
I can jump in and answer that if unless somebody else wants to. But that's due to the laws that the council and the mayor have passed in the district. They've created a market for local solar renewable energy credits that has a very high cap on the price. And as you said, it's higher right now than any other place in the country. And that's really driven the solar sort of boom that we've seen in the district. And it's one of the reasons that, we can, solar developers can offer such great sort of upfront benefits and, high lease payments to building owners. And as far as risks associated with that, I just say that, like, that's one of the things that we do at New Columbia Solar. We're happy to take that risk off your hands. There is some risk there. It's, laws change and markets change. It's a risk that we're pretty experienced with handling, and it's, a policy that we monitor very closely and obviously pay a lot of attention to. So, we're more comfortable with those kinds of risks than some buildings owners are. So that's always an option, is, just allowing your solar developer to take that off your hands.
Awesome. Next question: as the economy enters a recession, do you see stakeholders wanting to drop ESG goals as a way to cut costs?
I can jump in on this one. I think that, going back to my comment about embracing the trends and integrating, as owners really think through ESG and what it means, I think over time that trend is that they're actually finding that there are tremendous benefits in a lot of areas. And specifically when it comes to utilities or energy, that's often one of your highest operational costs for a building. And so if you can manage to achieve more efficiency, if you can drive down consumption, all of these things, there's usually a tangible financial benefit there. And so for the owners who are really getting into what's material to their business and acting upon those things and seeing the benefits, they will not drop the goals. In fact, they'll probably pursue them more aggressively. For others that are in a state of just kind of starting to think about ESG, or maybe they haven't reached that level of maturity yet with their ESG goal setting, I think it'll be a little more of a challenge. And so hopefully through conversations like these and the benefits that continue to materialize, it'll continue to drive the companies in the direction of more ESG and not less.
That's right. I think if you look at institutional quality owners, generally they're focused on, perhaps, being involved with GRES, looking for LEED certifications, Energy Star certifications, and those kind of owners, including CAR, have made those investments. Having said that, when you have building performance standards being passed anywhere in a different jurisdiction, and all of a sudden you're looking at your own performance metrics and what the standards are, is clear that there's potential financial risk. And so even for institutional owners, I think these building performance standards, and DOE will like me saying this, it's a kick in the pants for everybody, so even if you're thinking about maybe taking the foot off the gas pedal to reduce energy consumption, you have this risk in front of you, financial risk.
Thank you so much. And while we're on the topic of ESG, this is kind of a loaded question, so bear with me. Can you talk more about the ESG benefits of being a solar host/developer? Are the investors in your companies helping push in this direction? Does it help with any benchmarking your conduct? And could it help possible real estate and building owners with their benchmarking? Anyone want to chime in on this one?
Are we talking about benchmarking under Energy Star, like the district's benchmarking requirements and BEPS? I mean, if that's the case, then yes, solar does, it does help you get there. It helps you get closer to the BEPS standards. And, if you're subject to BEPS requirements because you're under the standards, it can help you get closer to, it can help you achieve your requirements. And in addition to that, there are ways to go solar that you can generate sufficient upfront, a lot of significant upfront capital to help you invest in energy efficiency measures that are required by BEPS. I don't know if I addressed the ESG side of that though. Cass or Christian, do y'all have anything to say there?
I think sort of in addition to what we've discussed earlier, I mean, I should highlight that solar is just one component, I think, of a building's overall strategy, or it should only be one component. So there are owners who want to install solar and get it to cover, maybe the common area space. And so it really handles a significant portion of the consumption. But that's just one part of the strategy. There are many other things that need to be done under the ESG model, specifically the environmental vertical, to really get to achieving something like BEPS. And so I think that's kind of one thing to keep in mind when you think of solar as related to the broader ESG bucket.
Thank you. And one more question. Does the cost of the roof prep work get wrapped into eligible ITC and depreciation costs?
I can jump in here too. So to the extent that it's necessary for solar, like the incremental costs, I believe do get wrapped in sometimes, but maybe Cass or Christian can speak to that more.
So so far, the 3 systems we built, one's been on a new roof, so it's integrated into the new roof. The first 2 were over existing roofs, but there was enough useful life left to kind of get us into the 20-25 years, so we didn't have to replace the roof. A couple of the systems we're looking at now would require a new roof, and it would be best to do it at the same time as a solar installation. And definitely should talk to tax council. We've heard different things. Our tax council says, maybe that you can capitalize it. And it'd be nice if you could, because then obviously you get the accelerated depreciation and the ITC and all of that. So Mike, you guys are at this all the time. And then also the gentleman in the first panel, what are you seeing for being able to qualify a integrated roof system plus solar as being an integrated installation and therefore subject to the tax benefits?
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have one more question. I'll just ask this one real quick. Can you speak to a little bit about how developers and owners are able to finance solar projects? Anyone want to chime in here?
I'll jump in and just say that, at least the way that a lot of New Columbia's models don't really cost much of developers unless they are taking on significant additional costs on their roofs and stuff like that. We can come in and finance it for you essentially, and then get you your lease payments, and et cetera, going forward. But there are other models, so maybe Cass and Christian can jump in there too.
Yeah, I don't have much to add, Nicole. I think what you said has been the most prevalent model. So nothing to add to that.
Yeah, we funded the first 3 from equity, but now that have done some, and now we're looking at a bunch more and bigger systems. That's one of the reasons why we're talking to New Columbia Solar and actually to some consultants to compare the equity model funded from equity versus a PPA where there's no capital. But there's just pros and cons to both. My guess is going forward, we'll be looking more at the PPA model versus funding from equity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to panel 2. What an incredible thought-provoking discussion that we had. Pleasure having you all join us today. Sadly, we are up on time, so I'm going to wrap things up. Glad we were able to answer a ton of those questions. First, thanks to all our panelists again for the wonderful session, and to our audience for sending in questions and tuning in. Thank you to our sponsors again, New Columbia Solar and Boland. And as a reminder, you will receive a recording shortly after this concludes. And you can also log into our website at bisnow.com/webinars to see the full replay. And while you're there, feel free to check out our exciting schedule of online and in-person events for the rest of the year. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.